Hey guys, what up? I'm here on the Zoom call today with my good friend Brady Mullen over at Cross Country Mortgage. Brady's one of the sharpest minds in the mortgage industry. He's a veteran financial advisor, and the reason I'm on the call today with Brady is because I've been super excited about some of the data that came out about Summit County recently. So Brady, nice to have you on here. I know I
Thanks, Tim.
always like picking your brain about this stuff. Um, Tell me a little bit about your thoughts. I know we've been discussing it, stock market versus real estate. And how liquid is America right now? How many people are sitting on a pile of cash and they're not doing anything with it because they're afraid?
Ultimately, real estate and stocks are the best way to hold wealth anyway, because everything else, with the rare exception of like commodities, if you own commodities or precious metals or something like that, but between commodities, real estate, and stocks, all the other forms of wealth are dollar denominated. So there's always this interest component that you don't get to control. So if inflation, if it becomes out of control, your life insurance policy won't be enough. If you have $1 million policy, because that's what you feel like you need for your kids or something like that, and all of a sudden we have this inflation problem, you don't have enough life insurance. If you have bonds that have like they're sold in $1,000 increments, and they might be paying 5% for the next 10 or 15 years or something, but if inflation goes up, you have $1,000 that's the debt that's owed back to you in a bond, and that's worth less, and it could be worth significantly less if inflation gets out of control. So annuities, life insurance, cash, bonds. I'm not saying that those things aren't useful, but those things are cash denominated. And so inflation can do to those things something that they can't do to stocks, to real estate, and kind of commodities. I say commodities only to try to give an exhaustive list of those things, but I don't believe commodities is a great place to store wealth either, because uh, I mean, real estate is also a commodity, but it pays you rent, and
Yeah.
other commodities don't do that. So I like real estate as a commodity, but those three asset classes perform very well against inflation because they're things that people will buy no matter what currency, no matter what's going on with the currency, right? If inflation is out of control and we're having to buy, here's a good example. I stopped on the way home. I was in Boulder this morning and I had to come down south, and I was hungry, and I stopped at a Qdoba, but I didn't want this big burrito that was going to be dripping beans and rice into my lap while I was driving. So I just got a quesadilla because I was like, oh, the cheese will stick together. It'll be cleaner. It'll be easier to eat while I'm driving. That quesadilla cost me 11 freaking dollars
Woo!
for a stinking quesadilla. That's crazy. I was like, what the heck? So,
Yeah.
like, but if that's the case, would you rather own the Qdoba that can raise the price of the things they're selling because they have to pay more to get them, and they're always just going to raise the price so they're getting a profit on the stuff they sell? Or would you rather have a pile of cash that's constantly buying fewer and fewer quesadillas, right?
That's a great analogy. And I think like as a realtor, I'm unabashed about real estate's better. Like I got nothing about it. Like I just think real estate's the best. Like not only do you have something that's tangible that you can use, but you can rent it out as well. You get your cash flow plus your equity, you double dip. And again, like the reason that I called Brady up today is to review stuff in Summit County, some of the trends. Like we saw the market just went crazy bonkers in 2020, 2021, 2022, and the pandemic. Everybody wanted to flee to the hills, and property values went up 44% in 2 years. So the average house in Summit County now is north of 1.3 million. The average condo is 650. It's similar. The condos up there are similar to the single family homes in Denver. And as an asset class, Brady talks about lifestyle investments, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. So, again, can you utilize your mutual fund for your buddies to go skiing at? No, you can't.
Right.
Can you utilize a $1.3 million house in Summit County for that? Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I
And
think, well, I want to point something out that you said, because I notice, this could just be anecdotal because it's what I've perceived, but when you say real estate's gone up in Summit County for 44% over the last 2 years, I think a lot of people's knee-jerk reaction to that is that it must be some sort of bubble, but I don't think that's the case, and I've got two compelling reasons why I think that is, and I know that if somebody's listening to this and is skeptical about it, I would be too. Because here we're talking to, I'm essentially in the lending space now, where I'm a lender, you're a realtor. I would be thinking, if I were listening to this from outside the industry, I'd be thinking, of course you don't think it's a bubble. Like, but I'll remind them, I got into this industry because I felt like it was being underrepresented in my clients, in their spheres. Like when they hear people talking about finance, real estate wasn't getting its proper due. So I didn't spend a lifetime in the real estate industry, and I've been trained on what to say about when to buy. Now's a great time to buy, and to always say that. Here's what I really do believe. Two things. First is that the reason prices went up is because interest rates were super low. Now that wasn't new because they'd been low since 2010. They dropped below 5%. I mean, they dipped below in 2009, but they went under and stayed under in 2010 for many people maybe listening to this, maybe their whole adult life. Right? If you became of age, or if you started caring about interest rates in real estate in 2010, you haven't known anything but sub 5% rates until very recently. So when rates were low, and then the federal government just dumped money into the economy. Now, look what happens when money is dumped into the economy. Of course, you don't have the people who were really struggling during COVID and needed that money to pay rent or to pay for groceries or whatever. They're not out buying real estate. They're out spending. They spent that money on groceries and rent or whatever. But that money went into somebody's pockets. So the people who were running businesses and collecting that money that went into the system, they're now so flush with cash that they want properties in places. So they're still sitting on a ton of it. But that money went into the system, and these people are buying real estate, and that's what's causing the prices to go up. And then the second thing is that there's this inventory crisis going on in just about the whole country. It's statewide in Colorado. It's crazy in Summit County and other places, but there just isn't enough inventory. So imagine like they're selling. Let's say that there's some apocalyptic event and they're selling water, like something everybody needs, because real estate is something everybody needs. If they're selling water and somebody says, "Oh man, the price of water just went up by 44% over the last 2 years, it's going to crash." And at the same time, there isn't enough water for everybody. That just isn't that does not play out. Right? There's no way. I shouldn't say no way, because I'll also talk in a minute why I don't believe that I can predict the future. But if you have a shortage of inventory of some good or service that people absolutely need, I don't see the bottom falling out of that. The reason the prices went up is because there's now a ton more money in the system. I don't see that correcting while there's 3 months worth of inventory when it's normally 6 or 7. That's an Econ 101 solution to that. Not a solution, but an explanation to that problem. I don't see this as a bubble. And lastly, like if it is a bubble, let's say that I'm completely wrong, because that could happen. I'm a big fan of being honest that I don't know the future. But that's another reason why I really like real estate and why I work in this industry, is because it's the asset class I want to own the most, because it responds the best when I don't know the future. If something breaks down, if our country struggles through some sort of issue. I mean, it could be like a Great Depression. It could be some sort of Dust Bowl scenario. It could be a global trade problem. It could be all sorts. I mean, use your imagination. It could be another pandemic. But what happened? I mean, real estate is the last thing people will stop spending money on because they need it. And so that's an asset class. If I can get good returns out of it, and you can, because the income component and the appreciation all levered, even if you're just using leverage conservatively, like at 50% or something like that, you're still getting a fantastic double-digit return on most real estate almost everywhere. And it's an asset class that people will never stop spending money on until they're dead, because they need to. It's something we need. So it's an asset class I like holding when I admit the fact that I don't know the future.
No, it's cool. And I think that a lot of people don't grasp the inside jargon of inventory. I mean, I think everybody should understand the basic supply economics and, supply demand economics, and that's what we're talking about in real estate. So when we talk about supply and demand and inventory, we're talking about, if all of the houses were, how many months would it take to sell every house that's available? And this right-hand slide shows historically, it starts back here in the fourth quarter of 2010, there was almost 30 months. It would take, 2.5 years for us to sell out all of the houses in Summit County. And look where we're at now. There's like 3 months, and 6 months is what's considered an like a balanced market. And so what Brady's alluding to is that, yeah, of course we say, well, if it went up 44%, it's a bubble, it's going to burst, it's going to collapse. But it's not. There's not enough for sale. Everything's going to be sold in the next, 6 to 12 weeks. So I think that's what you guys out there in consumer land, they're thinking like, oh man, if you're a business owner, or if you've made a lot of money in the stock market and you're sniffing out places to put it, and you're wondering about real estate and you're thinking about a bubble, there's no indication of it.
Yeah, it's like water, and there's a shortage of it. And just because it went up doesn't mean it's going to go back down, because there's not enough of it.
Right.
There's more people that want it than exists.
Yeah.
So I mean, and let's say that some outlier statistic that we didn't know to track hits us in the head tomorrow, and real estate does correct in some way, like it goes down. So that makes me think of like 2007. If you were to tell me in 2007 that it was the wrong time to buy and that you shouldn't buy real estate now, and I didn't listen to you and I bought it, who was right? Right? Like if you bought real estate in 2007 and you bought it smart, like you don't want to dump everything, that you don't want to be super thin on your margins, and if a client misses 1 month of rent, you're going to declare bankruptcy. That is not the way you invest in real estate, right? That's risky. But if you were smart about it and you bought real estate in 2007 because you were just buying real estate all along, and 2007 came and you were in your mode of buying real estate, how did you do? You crushed it.
You killed it.
You've crushed it. Now, you might have second guessed yourself a year later and been like, whoa, prices have really come down. But you could say that the only way that we can know when the exact best time to buy real estate is by looking backwards at what happened. You could never know that looking forward. And my whole, so I'm not, I under almost no circumstances, I have one exception to this, but under no circumstances do I ever say it's a great time to buy. I just don't use those words, because what I do believe is that it's a terrible time to hold a bunch of cash, because that's always true. It's always true that it's a good time to buy good assets. Now, there are better times than others, but you don't know when those are, and the cost of waiting is tremendous, because inflation is chipping away. And the opportunity cost of what you could be earning is just drifting by, and you're not taking advantage of that. I don't know when the exact lowest point, when you'll get the exact best price on the particular property that you want, but your risk of waiting for that is that it's going to appreciate even further, or the opportunity cost on that money, plus the inflation that's chipping away at the value. I don't see the people who get wealthy in real estate own real estate and don't own cash. Like as soon as they have enough cash to buy more real estate, they go buy more real estate, because it's a better thing to hold than cash. And that is just essentially always true. So I'm not a big fan of trying to time when is a good time, now is the best time, ooh, it's a great time to buy real estate. The truth is, it's always a good time to buy good assets. That doesn't mean that you go buy any piece of real estate that, anything that's dirty, like any dirt. That was a terrible joke. That doesn't mean you go buy anything all the time ever. You still want to be smart about the transactions that you make, like study them and make a good choice, but don't try to predict the future, because your cash will just, the value will just drift away while you're waiting, and the opportunity cost is huge.
Right.
Wealthy people do not store wealth in cash, and they probably hold more cash than the average American, because maybe they have payrolls to meet and they have reasons to have liquid cash for the expenses that they have coming up in the next 120 days or something like that. But as far as like wealth preservation and putting together a legacy for their family, they own assets, because those things don't matter what cash is worth. They always have value. And then what you said, like, when I'm on my deathbed, do you want to be thinking about your stock portfolio on your deathbed, or do you want to be thinking about the memories of ski trips you took with your friends? And I'm not saying like you can't have both those things. I'm a proponent of having both those things. I don't want to make a choice between those two things. I want to have wealth, and I want to go skiing with my friends. But that's another advantage to real estate, is it so gracefully combines those two ideas into the same thing. You can make money in real estate in the mountains and go spend the weekend there with your friends and have a great time and put together memories that, and people, I think this is a part of a cultural thing in the United States, but we feel like almost guilty for enjoying things. I just see that a lot. And I I was raised in a pretty religious family, and I think that is sort of, it's a common thing for people to slip into in religious families. But you don't have to wait for those things. Like if you're waiting to go skiing with your family until you're 65 and you finally have enough wealth to do that, like that would be honorable if that were actually true. But you can actually make money and go do those things at the same time. And somebody hearing this might think, well, yeah, but they're talking about the millionaires or what. But it is like you can store money in real estate in a way that you can enjoy it without having to be a millionaire first. Like it can help you on that path. I do projections all the time with people buying properties in the mountain communities where, you know, they're making 11, 12, 13% on their money while they're investing in those places and able to use it with their family and friends. Like you don't have to pick one or the other. You can do both those things.
Amen. I love it, man. Yeah, I think
Amen.
yeah, you alluded to religion as a like a guilt thing, and I think societally one of our upper limit factors is enjoyment. I think people don't allow themselves, they think they can't have fun or they can't have their pie and eat it too. And when I look at Summit County real estate, there it is. It's having your pie and eating it too. You just heard Brady say you can make 11 to 13% annual returns, and you get to go ski there or rent it out to your friends or all of the above. It's a huge win. So you guys out there that have been tuning in, you know, my Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube channel, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure working with Brady and picking his brain and hearing his thoughts on all this stuff. We'll be doing this again soon. Brady, thank you.
My pleasure. Love chatting with you, Tim. Thanks.